Welcome back to the To Be Fair show. I am your host, Johnny P,
Oh, here, real.
It's Q.
and we back. Welcome to season two. As you can see, we didn't switch the aesthetic up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Progressing, moving on to bigger things. We got some interesting concepts coming for you for the next couple for the next season, next few shows. We're gonna try a few things, see how it goes. Really excited to bring more guests on the show for sure.
So,
Uh, Dive a little deeper, give more in depth, more background to us as as your podcast, more individually about us. I don't know what you got, Quint.
No, I'm excited for season two. I think that the way I look at it is I see the pod as a space for growth within the Black community,
for sure.
right?
For sure.
And a lot of our topics kind of hit on that. So we're looking at introducing the marriage segment or series
Mm-hmm.
in which we'll actually be really sitting and talking to some married couples, married men, and see where a lot of their success inside their tenured relationships are at.
Mm-hmm.
Where, and of course, we're looking at talking to married people that's over a certain time of actually being married,
Yeah.
where we can actually get some real good tips or learn from some of the good and bad and get some advice on how they feel about marriage, as well as this Black fatherhood thing. It's something we touch on a lot, and we're excited to bring in some really good Black fathers and just having some real genuine vulnerable conversations about what fatherhood is like inside 2023.
I'm looking forward to both series. You know what I mean? The marriage talk. You know what I mean? I'm looking forward to that. But the black fatherhood talk is, you know what I mean? That right there is because as a black father for me, it's like that learn. We can learn so much from each other. We
Yeah.
can learn so much from each other, and the idea of being intentional and trying to put your best foot forward. As a result, hoping to get the best turnout for from your kids or for your kids. So I'm looking forward to that part of season two and just season two in general.
So, since we are talking about where you guys are headed for season two, and it being a new year, 2023, have you guys
Mm-hmm.
had time to? You can't really control how your year goes, but have you had time to kind of set the intention for your year?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've been thinking about it for the past few days. One of my big goals was to be more present and more intentional with my relationships, and mainly like I try to do pretty good with my friends. I need to do better, but more so like my family.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, just because it's so easy to get caught up in the, oh, I'm tired.
Facts.
We done hung out plenty of times before, so I'll catch you next weekend. I've been at work. I'm tired. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
just go lay it down, and you can get caught up in that like
Mm-hmm.
weekend, and you look up, it's been 2 months. Look up,
Hmm.
it's been
Yeah,
3 months. So that's
Facts.
something I'm definitely trying to just be more intentional about, being more present uh, with the people that love me, my family, people that kind of deserve that from me. I owe it
mm-hmm.
to them to do that. So that's really my biggest thing coming into the year. I wanted to work on for sure.
Yeah, that's dope. That's dope. I guess for me, I definitely want to. That's a good one, bro. I ain't think about that, but I do want to spend more time with my family after seeing Big One yesterday or last night. That was something. But for me, what I was looking at is pretty much scheduling my day a little more than I was like getting myself a bedtime, a specific time to wake up. I need to take advantage of more hours of the day than I've been taking. You know what I mean? Taking advantage of, and I think that like and not having that, I'm still not getting enough sleep or my the just that scheduling. I'm just trying to come up with a better schedule for myself to make sure that I'm checking as many boxes as I would like to have checked, and doing better at writing down and acknowledging short term goals is something that's big for me too this year.
Gotcha. So for me, I have I guess somewhat a couple. I think one would be keep the progress, uh, where I think this last year was a really good year of growth, and got a lot accomplished inside multiple spaces in which I felt like I took a step forward, and I would like to continue that growth in general. from just me as a man, me as a partner, me as a friend, me as a creative in general. I think that's a major one. I think I want to do more and do less, right? Of course, I want to do more in the sense of like getting more things accomplished. But I also do want to continue on the path of not always controlling every single piece of everything that I do, if that makes sense, which allows other people to kind of step in and do different things. And this is inside like multiple capacities of things in which I'm a keep busy person, but I think that a next step in my growth of being able to make new goals, reach new goals is going to be stripping myself of being as busy with so many different things. My last one would be putting an emphasis on self-care this year. Yeah, just finding times and spaces in which I'm happy in it and it promotes like growth mentally, physically, spiritually, in general. That's something I want to be intentional about. So yeah.
I got a question, bro. Do you meditate at all? Either one of y'all?
Um, I know that I don't specifically, depending on how you define meditation.
Well, I'm just
There,
not.
there's there's people that define meditation as like clearing your mind and allowing thoughts to flow freely,
Now I
and
take
I do
time.
that. Do I do it inside like the classic way in which like you sit in an extremely quiet room? No, but I always look at my showers as a meditation session where I just sit and I kind of allow my thoughts to be what they are. So I don't know, like again, depending on how you define it.
Yeah, I don't do yoga or nothing, but I definitely try to take time out as much as not as much as possible, but at least once a day, once every 2 days. Some days you get busy, you just moving, you just move through the day. But uh, usually like especially when I pull up to the house after work, I usually try to sit 10, 15 minutes and whether roll up a little something, just whatever I do, but I just try to take that time to just decompress
Yeah.
and gather my thoughts. So I do try to. That's something big for me.
You?
It's just my personal
No,
time.
I don't. I don't. And something crazy. I don't know. And you got a fire pit. So you ever see the difference between like I don't know. For me, I can gaze into the fire and like not have anything going on in my mind.
Hmm.
Those are like that's like the only time I've ever seen an actual place where my brain is actually, you know what I mean? I'm actually just gazing into the fire and I'm not thinking about anything specific. It's almost like a moment. It's in my mind when I think
That's
of
medicine.
meditation. It seems like the stopping of all of the thinking.
Well, it depends. I
You know what I mean?
think
I'm
that.
talking about like for me, what I or like the way that I define it for myself would be
Oh, okay.
more of like calming everything down and like trying to get because I my brain's always doing that.
Yes, yes,
So
and
like it
allowing
was
the
from
thoughts to flow by themselves, whatever
yeah.
comes and whatever doesn't. Netflix has an interesting little meditation series that I looked at, in which it talks through a couple different versions of meditation, in which I think it probably be good. All of us we could probably benefit from
Yeah,
sitting there because sometimes we have in our mind the thought of what meditation looks like as such a specific thing,
yeah,
where there is a multiplicity of different versions of what meditation looks like.
yeah.
I want to throw it back to the producer off cam. I want to see. I want to pose the same question to y'all. See what y'all's New Year's resolutions is, or what y'all done thought of.
I didn't have a specific New Year's resolution. I typically don't have a New Year's resolution. I know something that I do make sure that I do is to journal, whether it's a brain dump of what I've experienced or went through like the previous year to, okay, current day, I'm in a new year, what am I feeling? What are some things that I may want to do this year? And to me, I'll typically just journal. I do like to do yoga in the morning. I like quiet. So like when Quint wakes up, I'm like, don't even, I just need quiet. Like let me go through my yoga for about 20, 30 minutes because that's how I prep myself for my day. So
That's
I do
dope.
need those like quiet times to just listen to whatever she's telling me to do. And then I'll get in the shower and start my day.
No, journaling's
That's
dope.
dope.
I used to journal, I got away from it, but it definitely does help. That's a good one.
It's a power in writing things, like actually handwriting things.
Mm-hmm.
It's power, and I don't know what it is. You know what I mean exactly, but there's some power in actually
Just putting it
in writing it
putting it
down.
in
Yeah.
on
How
ink.
woke you want to get?
Say again.
Say how woke you want to get?
No, I ain't trying
Oh,
that
all right,
woke.
my
I
bad.
ain't.
Damn,
Yeah,
man. Damn.
I wasn't saying that to be
I was
on
gonna
no
say what
woke
they be
shit.
saying, but it's all right. We're gonna
Yeah.
throw it to Tone.
This year, if anything, I'm looking for increase this year in like a lot of different areas. Like spiritually, I want to become a lot more strong. Like I had a good year last year spiritually, and I definitely enjoyed that. As far as work, I got a lot more into the work that I actually want to do and working with more people that I actually want to work with within my business, more so than just doing busy work and doing stuff I didn't want to do. Like last year was a lot better, but I'm definitely looking for the increase in money and spirit, all of that this year. Like I've definitely had like a problem with finance. It's kind of like a battle where it's like I don't want to care about money like how a lot of people care about it. I don't want to care about it in the same capacity. But you know that plays to another thing too. Like you can end up broke like that. Like
Oh
Oh
you
yeah.
still
yeah.
got to make a
Oh
living.
yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of my thing this year.
That statement leads me to it was an interesting conversation that I might have had it like twice in this past week. But I was most recently having it with this guy Carl. And shout out to Carl. Carl's a listening. And we was talking about one, like to start this conversation, like there is a baseline, right? Where I think the baseline is like making to a specific income level in which you're able to supply and do everything that you need. But then there is now that next gray area where you then start choosing happiness and income and the balance of it, where sometimes you have to sit and decide
Oh, that's for sure.
if me making 20K more is worth me missing all of my kids' activities, the dance recitals, the practices, the games, X, Y, and Z. If that 20K bump, this is once you get to a specific level though,
Yeah.
because you can't start the conversation when you're still in the scarcity mindset.
Facts.
But then it's the idea of like, if that 20K more is worth me working 30 more hours, and that's stressing me out, and me barely getting sleep, and the stress that's going to put on my body in the long run.
It's
And
not
it
about
becomes
paper.
like
It's
that
about
that own
position.
little balance between happiness and chasing quote unquote the bag.
But they've literally brainwashed us as a fucking community, as in a society. This whole getting to the bag,
No.
everybody, the bag, the bag, the bag, bro. Like I literally, I'm gonna have to shirt that. It's not about paper. It's about position. I'm gonna have to shirt that, y'all, because you're talking about exactly what I mean when I say that.
Oh, for sure.
It's about keeping your overhead low enough to where you can make a decent wage to where you can spend as much time as you can on the things that actually
Make
fucking
you happy.
matter.
Yeah.
We're literally like that bag. Oh, get into the bag. Get
Oh yeah.
everybody on that, bro. And it's like, bro, so you're for sale. That's like
That's a
all of
hustle.
it means is that you're for sale. Like every bit of your time is for sale. Like,
No,
no, dog. No, dog.
no, that's something I had to like being in sales. That's something that like
Mm.
where it's such a push to where like you feel you feel bad for sometimes taking days. But what I've found though is the more that when I take time off, I usually don't miss out on income because when I do work, like if I
Come back
take a week,
harder.
I'm more productive, I'm more efficient.
Yeah.
So it's for me, it's like I don't no longer feel guilty about taking that personal time
Mm-hmm.
because when I show up and I've had that personal time,
Murder.
I'm a beast.
And I know the.
I'm a beast. So for me, it's like you have to take care of home. You gotta spend time with your family. You gotta do all of that in order to be able to perform your best when it comes time to actually get into that bag. So I mean, to me,
Agreed.
that's my thing. Is I'm like there is this place where it's happiness or income, but you always got to choose the happiness because if you got to like, there's millionaires that jump off bridges every day, and you gotta have that happiness, and when you're happy, you can make all the money. You can make all the money and not be happy, but I'd rather start with happiness and then move from there.
Gotcha.
For sure.
I think this is probably a good segue for you to introduce that Master P Romeo conversation. I think just that the idea of like income, happiness, provision from parents, and what you choose
Oh
Might
yeah.
be a little bit. What?
Well, yeah. No, I mean, like I said, that's something we brought up earlier as far as and shout out Romeo and Master P. I think they done came back together
Right.
Yeah,
and
for
kind
sure.
of made they had those tough
Amends.
conversations that sometimes it's tough to have with your parents or
Hmm.
your kid, but it does go against what you were saying as far as how when kids are raised with privilege, there's a lot of what would you say, ungratefulness there
Mm,
to because I don't know nothing about Lil Romeo's financial situation, but I'd imagine growing up he had more than
yeah.
the average,
No, for
than like
sure.
99% of
Absolutely.
average kids. So
Absolutely.
then to come back and complain, I mean, like you say, your money's your money, and like y'all don't know nothing about the contracts and all of that.
Right. Right. I have to see exactly what it looks like.
But you do see that a lot of times with like, I guess the more you have, the less you just think it's automatic.
Mm,
You don't necessarily know it all goes into, getting you to that position,
Right.
putting
And
you to where you can go to private schools
mm-hmm.
or go to all of that, and then to say, well, you jipped me up this. I imagine those do have to be some tough conversations. I imagine Master P was a little disappointed. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
sure
no.
Romeo was disappointed too if he found out that he got put on the back burner for something
Yeah.
or somebody else got put in front of him. I could see that being mad too. But
One thing I will say though, because y'all know I talk like me and my pops, we talk every day, multiple times a day. One thing I can say, and I'm not like siding one way or the other. One thing well, first I want to say, it was very healthy for us as people to be able to see that means that father and son had after having the dispute amongst each other. Not saying that
Mhm.
it needed to go to where we knew about it. It didn't have to become something that we knew about, but it was actually good for us to see a father and son work out this disagreement in front of our eyes. That was actually very healthy, I thought. But and also one thing the other thing I was going to say is that with my father, and I think we're probably certain fathers when they're actually trying to lead. And I actually don't like this because he'll be like, yeah, but that you'll get that when I pretty much when I pass. So they'll be putting things in their minds. They're doing what they're doing. They're doing it for you. Is even though it looks like it's me, it's actually for you too. Do you see what I'm saying? And I've
yeah,
had my pops say that to me in many different times. Like it's like, yeah, but that don't make sense. But you gonna get it on the back end though. You know what I mean? That's how he feel. And I think that could have been a lot of like Master P's mindset too. Is like at the end of the day, you talking about this bit of money, but I'm building this business so that when it's your time, this is yours.
you got it all, no
Exactly.
matter
So like
what.
you talking about this little change right here, but on the back end, when this is all are going to be yours. So I
Yeah.
could imagine that that's probably a little something that was in his head too.
Well, that's a good perspective as far as something like only a father have that kind of foresight as
Hmm.
far as you thinking about after you. That's very, very unselfish. Ask me how many times I think about what's gonna go on after I'm not here no more.
Mm, right.
Very rarely, very, very, very
Yeah.
rarely. But to even like think, oh, I'm not gonna be here one day.
Hmm.
You gonna be here. Like we talked about legacy and building and leaving. What you gonna leave for your kids. That's maybe it was that.
Hmm.
Hopefully it was that. But like you say, it's good to see him because not all disagreements got to go.
Probably.
Well, not even got to go public, but they ain't got to go to the edge.
Right.
You
Right.
ain't got to
Facts.
jump off a cliff just because you disagree with somebody. Sometimes I felt this way, you felt that way. Let's
Hmm.
sit, let's talk about it. Most time there's some place in the middle where we can meet and be cordial and even move forward. Sometimes even with like a stronger bond
Right.
than before because we sat and talked about it. So
Facts.
that was definitely something I personally, was happy to see because I've been a master. Like we say, Master P was the hood's hero, man.
Hmm.
That man came and played for the Hornets, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you don't get that's real as
You
hell.
can't knock
No
you
Limit
can't knock
Soldier,
the
them
man
boys
at
was in
all.
WWE and shit.
Yeah. Facts. I forgot about that.
Like
This definitely
he
was on
lived like
there.
15 niggas' dreams,
Nah, that's
like
facts.
in one lifetime. So so it kind of was heartbreaking or just unfortunate to see. Romeo said that. He's
Mm.
like, damn, he this, but then to see him come back on the back end, you like, that's pretty solid.
Um, I guess my take on it would be I do look at it inside going back to kind of like the original segue of it. There's this space where I do see kids who grow up with and don't that have always had that. are unappreciative of a lot of the things that they were allotted, and so they take that for granted. In comparison to, like, you have a kid that didn't have, and they're almost appreciative of, like, the sketches that their parents might get them,
Yeah.
because like the last shoes had a hole in it. In comparison to, like, a kid will throw a temper tantrum over the fact that they couldn't get the new Balenciaga shits or whatever. And I think that leads itself to its own space where us growing up or growing as men, I think that we're inside a space that likely we're going to be raising middle class kids.
Yeah.
And it's his own balance now that we even have to be conscientious of like, how much do we spoil our kids? How much do we make sure that they are still grateful for the things that they have? And finding that balance in between. Because again, like I know I've seen kids, know kids that are extremely ungrateful for, like, these privileges that as a kid I know I would have wished and loved to have had.
Yeah.
And like they throwing tantrums, mad disrespectful to their parents that have truly given them literally any and everything that they want. And I think that that's his own little thing. And that, to me, that was a piece of what I took from, like, that Romeo situation. It might not be as specific as that, but when I think of it extrapolated a little bit, that's the conversation that I have in my head.
Yeah, no, and I get that too. And I was saying that I can't remember exactly where I heard it, but it was a guy. He was saying if you spoil your kids, then you'll end up raising your grandkids. And if you raise your kids, then you'll end up spoiling spoiling your grandkids. And I felt like, you know what I mean, to me, there's some truth to that. It's like I ain't grow up with no silver spoon by far. You know what I mean? Just the same narrative as most of us, the single mother household with the, you know what I mean? Nigga had on the shacks, you know what I mean? Bro was on banging them two hands on the back of the Jones, you know what I mean? So I come from, you know what I mean, that the airs off Sugar Creek. Mom Dukes picked the airs up off Sugar Creek. I remember one year, well, we ain't got to go in with that for another conversation, but yeah. And then bro,
And you was appreciative as fuck when you got them first forces.
what?
Oh yeah, first.
Right,
What?
right. That's what I'm saying.
What? And then I remember getting my first job, being able to buy my own shit.
Right.
That changed the game right there. But so no, I definitely couldn't see like that, the spoil shit. And then also a lot of the times we're forcing with the spoil thing, we're actually overcompensating for what we want or wanted during that time period. And I think that it's causing the children to grow up way too fast as well.
Well, yeah, not, and I think also because it's something I grew up slightly spoiled myself. But I think one thing is, as far as like if you're going,
We can tell, Johnny.
whatever.
Goddamn privileged Johnny
Whatever,
over here.
whatever. I appreciate life, though. I appreciate life. But one thing, as far as like, I think where people go wrong is they spoil their kids with like things and materials, shoes, clothes, toys. Where the real bag is to spoil them with experiences. Let them like, and that's how you get people that like you don't necessarily care about the things. You just want to live life. You just want to go out and experience.
Fucking gym. Because to me it seems that's literally what develops confidence. Because you got things on. These things develop your confidence, but when you don't have these things, then that means your confidence doesn't exist. But if you actually have those experiences that build confidence, then that can't be taken away.
Right.
Yeah.
So
That's dope, bro. I never thought about that. That's dope.
I
My
actually
bad.
got a good quote that might relate to this topic, and y'all tell me what y'all think about this. Basically, this quote comes from Billy Carson. Billy Carson is the guy who leads like Forbidden Knowledge TV. Just want to give him a shout out. It's good stuff on there.
Okay.
But he made a quote that says, "Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. We are living in the era of weak men. However, the strong men are returning. It's a cycle." So, do y'all think that's relevant to some degree? Like, as
I mean,
far
I
as
think
this
that
goes,
statement's true. I think we're just in the beginning of the weak man phase, though. I think it's gonna take a while. Cause I think like we're the generation where like the kids are the like the weak ones. I mean, I
Say
think.
what you feel. Come on. You had something you wanted to get off.
Well, I mean,
Right there.
well, I was gonna say like.
Go tell them.
Well, like the kids, like you see them, like they They living in cancel culture. They got safe spaces. They don't be
Fragile.
out. They don't be outside. They don't know nothing about the street light. And I think that's the
He said the street light, not street
Light.
life, not
Yeah.
I
life.
get what he
Light.
said. Yeah, the street
Oh no, no, I
I
want
was
to
gonna say
clarify
for everybody else, that was a good thing to
Yeah.
point out. Yeah.
light, the street light. But so I think that the new, because I even see like some of the younger kids in my job, just there's not an appreciation for like our generation, or there's not appreciation for the path that's been laid for them. It's like they got it real easy nowadays. We were just talking about the what's it called, Chat GPS, where they can go in and they can write all their homework, their papers for them.
Oh shit.
They got life real easy. Free game if you
Hey,
in school.
I might have done my homework if that motherfucker would have typed for me. I would have been fired.
Free game if you in school, Chat GPS, but it's laid out for them, and you don't see, or at least me personally, I don't see a lot of the work ethic from that younger generation. I don't see a lot of the confidence to even go step out and be different. You know, I don't see young kids, whatever the internet tell them.
Yeah, the old heads
That's what
say
they
that.
gonna do. Like I ain't know. It's been a while since I've seen a young kid that was like truly like unique, or that like this is how I feel, and this is what I'm standing on. And I don't care what Instagram got going on.
That's
This
right.
So I can't agree with that, but
and like I said,
But I mean, you know, the old heads say the same thing about us too. Is that we spoiled and we don't
no,
have work ethic.
And that's what
It's
I was
like,
about to say.
It's almost like that continuous thing.
Yeah.
Like that's like the music. That's
I,
like
I sounded like my
everything.
uncle right
yeah,
there.
Yeah. So like,
we-
but at the same time though, I can see the feminization of the kids. They're very, very much more like on the titty. Like then we like on the titty, like always in the house. There's benefits to being outside. There's benefits that you know what I mean. You actually be able to roll down the hills and like play fight and fucking you play football and
Yeah,
you know what I mean. There was
actually
stuff
fall
like
down
that.
and
There was
shit.
So
some things-
I guess I want to interject really quick because I don't put that solely on the kids though. I think that right now parents also are scared to allow their kids to go outside.
No, that's
And you hear and see this exceptionally. Like I hear and see it all the time myself or whatnot. And I even have to catch myself in some circumstances because of we're overloaded with information, and with overloaded with information you also see a bunch of the bad shit.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
Even though like technically crime is way less than it was when we grew up, we see it more. And so in general, parents are way more apprehensive to letting their kids go out. And I've seen this on multiple levels where kids be still wanting to be kids to an extent.
Yeah.
But their parents are
Don't allow
really
them to.
like,
But no,
you can't go out. You can't go outside your backyard. And like for example, like a true example of this would be like even with QJ, with his mom, can't go out the backyard. But me, I make sure there's an asserted effort to tell him go explore or whatnot. As long as like him and his cousin go walk the neighborhood, go walk up and down what you call it. They go walk the little soccer, go explore and be a kid.
Yeah.
And even that is a piece of like the fact that as a woman, women are raised way different than boys.
For sure.
So even in her raising a kid, some of that's going to reflect in how she was brought up. So like she has certain constraints. With me, I was an outside kid, so I want to make sure that he has those things. But I also sit and hear people say the world is way worse right now, but it's not really. It's the fact that we also shelter our kids way more.
Yeah, no, I think what you said as far as it being the parents, like what Tone said, good times create weak people. I think we're the good times.
Yes, yes.
We're the
Yes.
good times. Like we're like that first generation that then came up and we didn't had most of it. We get into the bag for the most part. We elevating the culture, but then like you say, good times create weak people. A lot of what's coming from us is that the weak people, and then I think what's gonna come from them will probably be more so strong people. You know, like our grandkids. But like if we had like all this, you know, we did good for ourselves.
Right.
We're gonna do good for our kids. So then it's gonna create, like you say, quote unquote weak people. I think it's a natural, like you say, it's a natural progression. Then in another generation, another cycle, you're gonna see stronger people because you start back at the top of that cycle. And so I don't think, I don't think we're at the end of the week, week man. I think we're just kind of starting it because I think we're at the good times.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of rough to say because it's almost like saying, and I guess that's where you have to make sure that you're living below me, or I don't know. It's crazy because how do you? What is it that? Because if let's say you're a middle class earner, right, and your lifestyle just is a bit, a bit above what we're gonna say the rough times create strong people, right? So how exactly would you say that you go about creating strong children in a middle class, you know what I mean,
You know, my,
as a middle class
I,
earner?
my mama used to tell me, she was like, I got money. You don't.
That's a fact. Yeah.
'Cause I used to be like, yeah, we doing all right, mama. She's like, no, I'm
I'm
doing
doing
all
all
right.
right.
You just out here, Lord.
Yeah.
So I
Just
think making that distinction helps.
yeah,
Cause that's
nah,
one thing.
that's
Like
exactly.
I've always like I ain't I was well I was privileged, but I also knew that I wasn't privileged. Like my
Yeah,
parents had money, so I
yeah.
had to work and earn. Like I say, I had more so experiences that they would let me do, and then like stuff I wanted, I'd have to work for.
Mm,
I'd have to go and like if I wanted shoes, I'd have to go and work, do save my money, do whatever. But for the most part, they would just send me this, send me this different experiences to help me be a more
more
well-rounded
rounded.
person.
That's dope.
yeah. My answer to the question you posed would be that there's a couple things that I'm advocates of. I am advocate of putting your kid in sports, them finding whatever sport that they enjoy and putting them in there because there's a bunch of life lessons, especially revolving around adversity, that come within group team activities in sports. So I'm a heavy advocate for that. Again, whatever you sport, and even if like with your daughters, putting them inside, whether that's competitive cheer, dance, gymnastics, I think that in itself teaches them a couple lessons of one adversity because that's a natural space of it, and it's a lot of character building things that come with it. I also say that putting your kids in spots where they have to be their own autonomous self, and them being their own autonomous self, like of course, like sometimes you might want to create the scenarios where like you're able to look from afar enough, but at the same time, like they're able to have those different adverse little areas where literally growing up in the hood, like there's creatable scenarios that don't have to deal with like dealing with hood shit, right? Like there's gonna be natural like spaces again where like you have to become your own autonomous person and stand up for yourself. You know what I mean? Actually, you know what I mean? Think for yourself inside a critical moment. And I think that finding different ways to do that is one of those things that I promote.
Damn, you know something?
Again,
Go ahead.
as I said, one of my ways that I like doing this is again through sports. This has been a lens that I've did this well, where for example, my son, he's played competitive basketball for a while, but what also has happened with that is that like Saturdays and Sundays are tournament days. And what I did as a parent as well, and a coach as well, is that like we might play at 8 and 10 a.m., right? But I might not leave the gym until like 4 or 6. But what you see is that with a bunch of second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth graders, they all end up getting together and just like kind of like it's an empty court over there, and they're all just like BSing and being kids together a little bit. Where like I might be in the stands, I don't know, 500 feet away. It's close enough that you could see enough that all right, they ain't like completely like wilding out. But what you'll see is that like they're able to really develop into themselves, and you're able to create a scenario in which like they're able to be their own autonomous self, and then you find like 4 years later, they got friends from New York, Maryland, Texas, in which like then they done met up and then they got back up and now they outside. And we've had the scenarios where they all get up at the hotels and they're doing a little be the equivalent of what is it,
Laser
paintball
tag.
shit?
Oh,
Like
paintball.
yeah, laser tag. And you got 50 kids outside running around, all having an amazing time, amazing moments they'll never forget. and like it's been able to create those different scenarios. Yeah, so that'd be my answer to it.
Yeah, that's dope. And while you were talking, something else I thought would be something, as I'm still learning to be a parent, you know what I mean? So something else I thought about. Have you ever thought about like having like your youngin like doing like public speaking?
Yes,
Like
yes,
those.
I
I
think
think that
that
that's a very, very, 'cause especially when you start talking about being an individual. I think that
hmm
being an individual comes from a confidence of being able to actually articulate yourself in front of those people. So
yes.
then, you know what I mean? I think that that's actually something that now, I mean, that was just an idea. Like as you were talking, like, okay, well, that may be something that will, you know, push us a little further and be more intentional with that trajectory. Because if you can do that, then it literally takes away this whole inferiority complex when it comes as it relates to jobs. When
hmm
the boss man is a white man and you don't really know how to you don't really want to even talk to him, but just because of that right there, you don't really want to say
Yeah,
nothing because
Right.
you ain't
you
been
don't know how
comfortable
that
speaking.
communication. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, I think that public speaking, that's something
Yeah.
you probably start that as early as possible because that's something that could actually translate into like all facets of
Oh
life.
yeah.
Yep.
And I was gonna say something else too, like what you were saying as far as like I think people get caught up raising like or trying to raise kids to be what they want them to be instead of
Mm-hmm.
letting like you when you have a kid that's a person.
hmm
Right.
They're gonna have their own thoughts, opinions, feelings, insecurities, confidences in the world. But ultimately, like 30 years down the road, it's not they're not gonna be whatever you wanted them to be. They're gonna be what
Mm-hmm.
they wanted them to be. So it's however you best prepare them to become what they want to be, not prepare them to become what you want to be.
I'm
You
one that
get
believes that you can actually have your kid like as far like you watched the Serena Williams Venus joint, the movie
yeah, King Richard, yeah,
King Richard. Yeah,
King
yeah.
Richard. That's a great movie too.
That right there. Then you look at Floyd. Like to me, the greatest were molded into like from they
Molded,
Well,
were all
I
like
think
but I was
it's
gonna say,
Michael Jackson.
but
You
he
know what I
didn't
mean?
do
They
that
were like,
until Venus and Serena showed an interest in wanting to, and then he pushed him.
okay, I see what you're
But
saying.
he didn't choose
Which way? I
he
mean,
didn't choose.
I don't know.
I guess
I
they
have to
kind of
watch the movie, but it fairly like it was a choice
forced.
to make sure in intentionality
Yeah, because they
to
both played tennis. The
yeah
mother and father both played tennis
yeah
too.
Yeah,
to present
but
that.
he was also on them like he made her quit because of school,
Yeah, yeah. I'm not.
and
No,
so
but those are also like simple lessons.
I mean,
I guess to
she was still her own person. That's all I'm saying. She was still
but it was a
came up.
direct influence
yeah, it was
of
like the
what her
product
parent did.
of the
All right, so
raising.
I think that there's a couple things with it to what you were saying. I think that if you are putting your kid inside like a sport or anything like that, and this is like a all money in type scenario, then you're approaching this out the wrong way, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Right? If you're actually using a sport or activity, whatever that is, again, this can be competitive. Like I think competitive things definitely, team oriented things definitely, because like it's a lot of things that you learn from it. I would say that there's so many literal life lessons, and this goes to like what Roy was just saying, where right now my son doesn't really struggle with public speaking. Why? As a point guard, he's always had to kind of like speak and be vocal. But then he's also had coaches outside of myself, in which have pretty much had the kids speak out and say whether it's like a play and be able to explain that in front of all of his peer group.
That's
And
dope.
that's been a major thing or whatnot. Then you get into the team captain spot where now you're pushed inside a space where there is a leadership quality from start to finish as soon as you walk into a door. And then there's a heavy accountability and um, vocal component that comes with it, in which there's still like all these are translatable skills to where if you don't succeed in this thing, all these skills directly translate to real life situations.
Hmm.
Um, and to me, that's one of the things I'm most intentional about is that most adverse situations I compare to real world things with my son. Yes,
But we dropping real deep into our black fatherhood bag, and we got a whole doggone
we rapping. I
yeah,
got you.
yeah.
We're gonna take
It's
this.
in the bag. I love the conversation
Yeah.
because I like learning. You know what I mean? My kids are still young, so I soak up all this information. I got like a good few years before. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
I
Nah.
start to really drop into it, but yeah, man, we gonna
Put a
push
pin,
it. Let's put a pin in it, Johnny. You mind a pin?
Hey, you do your thing, bro. You can take the point and run
Yeah,
it.
let's just put a
Hey, run the
pin in it
point.
real quick, goddamn.
So I guess we'll go to off cam ties for who asked you anyway.
So something that has been popular on social media is men complaining about women not taking their lead. In your opinion, do you feel like majority of men are in a position or have the capacity to lead?
You want smoke? You want
I
smoke?
mean, I ain't say that. I'm not saying I like to tussle.
What you got?
She
What you
trying to
got,
drop.
Rev?
Hey, that's rough. Um, I would actually say the latter. I don't think that in comparison, that's crazy. In comparison, what is the population? I'm trying to think of like, do I think I don't think majority are. Just being completely honest, I don't think majority of men are.
And if you say no, can you elaborate?
Absolutely. I don't think most men, or yet most men, saying over 50% of men, have the capability or the mindset to actually be able to lead. I don't think so. I think that I think a lot because it takes a lot more selflessness than a lot of men that naturally have. I mean, with the naturally, with people in general, we have a very selfish society at large. So it takes a lot more selflessness to actually lead because at the end of the day, you're leading, but that leadership should come for it should the leadership should definitely be coming from an angle that is for the benefit of everything around you. So if you don't have a good understanding and a good sight on the things and the people around you, you don't have the ability to be able to prioritize things in this correct way to make sure that you know what I mean. Because it's very very strategic. In order to be the leader, you really have to have you have to be selfless. Number one. Number two, you have to have the ability to prioritize the needs of the family, which is definitely and that's where the selflessness really comes because of you have to prioritize the needs of the family. So that it's not as easy said, and I don't think that a lot I wouldn't say that majority of men have the characteristics to be able to do that.
Gotcha. For once, I'm gonna agree with Real. But nah. But honestly, I think that a piece of it will go into like what version of a leader that they see themselves being as well. And to me, that this is where I think that a lot of guys end up getting into like this little weird space of not being able to actually properly lead inside the ways they want a woman to follow them. Because a lot of times when you hear guys speak about this, and I see the guys, they're talking about from a traditional trope. And most guys don't have a lot of the ability to provide inside a traditional trope to lead with that same level of traditionalism. I'll just put it like that. In which then if we start like maybe like adjusting leadership styles to where it's more egalitarian or some shit like that, maybe there's more guys that can possibly lead inside that capacity. But especially if we speak specifically traditional, I don't think so. And I think that in itself, we can look at just basic incomes and household incomes and how many people work, and we can kind of like place the fact that most family structures are modern. So to like try and lead inside like a classic way, that might not be really what's set. But then let's get into like guys, and as Rail was going with like your actual character traits when it comes down to, are you a selfless leader? Are you somebody that are only looking to lead because of you have an advantage over a person? Are you somebody that's moving off of ego and you feel that these are things that are entitled to you? And I don't think that most people, not just men, this is male, female, don't have the discernment to lead inside that regardless, either way. And I think that that's an important thing in itself, is that we have a bunch of people who say that they want to be leaders that don't have a track record of leading anything.
The shit just sound good.
Yes,
A
I
lot of
agree.
that shit just sound good because when I tell you, bro, that's one of the most stressful things is like you have everything. We talking about leading, like as a leader of a household, you're literally having to.
Niggas ain't even led a team. My bad. Keep going.
Yeah, you have to. It's there's
Led a
so
dance
much.
routine. My bad.
There's so many boxes to check, bro.
Yeah.
There's so many boxes to check because like, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Like you see all these gray hairs, nigga. This shit, it ain't just there off. I feel like
Yes.
Obama got them
So that
after
shit-
8 of them.
That shit come from leadership.
That's your leadership stripes.
Hey, I look like Obama after the 8, bro. You seen him before and after the 8?
Yeah.
Hey, that's what I look like.
Yeah, after the 8.
It's definitely not for the faint. It's definitely not for the faint-hearted because it takes a lot, bro. It takes a lot, and then trying to actually have your have your to have to because the thing is that when you do it, it's like you naturally take the back burner. You're naturally going to take the back burner, but then when you actually as a leader, bro, you literally put yourself damn near all the way at the bottom.
Can I hop in there real quick?
Absolutely.
Can I? Cause I want to disagree with you boys so bad. I want to, but I do think you're right as far as nowadays. I don't think there's the propensity for people to lead in the society that we're in, as far as when it comes to the microwave generation. I think leadership takes. You have to have an oven to cook with leadership. You got to take patience. You got to grind. You got to be able to put in that work as far as to be able to acquire those skills. You don't just wake up one day and become a manager at your job.
Facts.
You have to be there for a while. You got to learn, how the ins and outs of the operation. You got to learn how to be a leadership. I think nowadays people are with instant gratification is so fast. People just say, "I want to be a leader," and then they want to expect to hop into a leadership role without having done any of the work to become a leader. Because I think naturally, I do think men have the propensity, or like we're inherently wired to be leaders. I don't think it's something as far as like men just can't be leaders. I think it's something with our society nowadays as far as what has gotten men away from being leaders. I think it goes, like I always say, it goes back to like the internet age, the microwave generation. People want it now. They don't want to sit and put in the work, have the patience to be actual leaders. And I think that's the biggest problem. 'Cause I think, because back in the day, but before the internet, and I look at even like people like my father, my friends, I see men that have the characteristics to be leadership and put it in. I see a lot of men that are leaders of not only their family, but their community, their jobs, all of that. So for me to say no, I don't think most men are capable of being leaders. I don't necessarily agree with that, but
That wasn't the question. We said like in today's time.
That's what I was gonna say in today's
Oh
time.
no, you made it really broad just then. I wanted to make sure.
Well, I was finna
you tried to hang us real.
Yeah. That nigga said this made it sound like we were saying niggas don't have the ability at all. Like,
Hey, I put y'all out there, but I was gonna bring it back in. But I think it does come down to like that internet age, and I think once people get past the novelty of the internet and the information age, we'll get back to a space where you have more men. And like I say, within the modern situations, I think men have to learn how to lead differently. I
And
think.
that's what I was going to say. I think that the reality is that we have to rework what leadership looks like inside a family structure.
facts.
And that's where a lot of shit gets tripped up at. And like it'd be so many times I just sit and look at the common discourse on Facebook and be like, bruh, niggas and females on so far different pages. And like both of them about sound crazy as shit to me.
Yeah, facts.
You know what I mean? Guys and girls in which like, to me, I'm critical on both sides. And like listening and looking at certain guys, I'd be like, bruh, why you want this woman to adhere to your every beck and call? And like you are still inside a scarcity mindset for real by yourself. Just you by yourself. But she should just come in, even though you don't have any fruitful things to actually take claim to. And she should just follow behind your non-fruitful ass.
Right.
How, why, where? It doesn't make sense or whatnot. Like, again, a lot of people don't have a track record of leading in anything. Like, and why now do you think that miraculously somebody should just follow you? I'm going to throw it to my boy Tone.
I was actually about to agree with you on that because you alluded to that just a second ago, like in the background, like you ain't never even led a team.
Right.
Like I think leadership really starts before you even get to the family, it's like if you ain't never even led a team or you never led anything in your life, how are you gonna
Work
think you're
shift. Niggas
capable?
ain't work.
No, but see, the
Like work
thing is, you
shift.
can grow into it. Like I was
I
forced to
was
grow
definitely
into
about to
it.
say that. That's what I was about to say. You have to, like, in order to learn to
Hold on,
be a
so
leader.
let me hop in. But Real, you also were placed in leadership spaces. Like I know you.
Oh
Like,
yeah, no, I
even
didn't think about yeah.
you actually were in leadership spaces, and like
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't just like some random thing that you just like. You were also that was seen in you early
I had to
from
still figure it
multiple
out, is
people.
what I was saying though.
And
Oh no,
I had to figure
that's
it
what I was
out.
about to
Yeah,
say.
nah, I
That's
didn't think
basically
about
what I was
that.
about
but
to
you
say.
also had some experience in leading something.
And that's the only way to actually learn, to
Yeah.
be put in a leadership position. That's when you really learn what it takes, because you learn
Yeah,
it's not
yeah.
about just being,
That's
I,
facts.
I ain't got to be the best on the
That's
team
facts.
or the best here. Like, you got leadership means you know how to delegate, you know who's the best for whatever. Like, you seeing everything. So you seeing in a family, you seeing the gifts within your woman, the gifts within your children. You able to lead all, you able to make sure that the best thing is happening. It's not just about I'm the king and I'm ruling the house and I run all of this and I run you and I
Well,
run that.
it's not about control.
It's not about control. That's
Mm-hmm.
exactly it. It's like you really got to lead outside of the house. I think even before you even get to that point, you got to learn leadership from being a leader.
Then it definitely takes it took at least for me, even said like having like leaderships, like different leadership roles. It still, for like family dynamic, it still takes a lot of growing into it. Because like say in that traditional role, naturally it comes off initially as that dictator kind of. If you've never seen it done in your face, it comes off like the dictator is, as I
Yes.
mean, you being a dictator. But see, what it does is over time. You and see, this is another thing what I was saying, and it's pros and cons to both sides of this. But getting married younger, right? It allows for you to have that time to understand how to, or not necessarily getting married, but being in a relationship where you a long term relationship early, where you can actually hone in on said skill. Because if you've never done it, you can be 35 and still have never done it and do a shit job, and she ain't gonna stick around at 35 for you to learn to be a leader. That's some shit you needed to be learning down yonder when you was younger, and then now you
Maybe.
at an age where she's gonna be willing to accept your leadership. She ain't just gonna, oh yeah, for the next 20 years or 10 years you can figure it out. Hell no.
Not
But
at
bro,
35.
I also say that I think that what you're saying, and I think that sometimes you got to step outside yourself. And I know you feel this way with me as well. But I think that there's an important piece where to do that at that age and properly grow, you have to be a person of character. And like actually like do like that real work on yourself. In which I also don't believe like most people are those people as well. And that's older or younger in general.
Can I ask you
Where
a question real quick?
hold on, I think that my addition to this as well would be I have this thing, and again, this is male and or female, and I look at this, and this goes inside the leadership space. One of my main things is that you put a person in power, and they reveal their real selves to you. Like so, that's what I pay most attention to is when a person feels like or has a certain leverage, a certain space of power over other people, over other person, whatever. To me, that's the version of the person that I judge probably most because of that. It just reveals your real character to me.
No, I got a question. Something you just said just kind of sparked this in me. As far as you said, it takes, in order for people to be in that leadership or to grow into that leadership position, you have to have character.
Especially if you're young and you're starting from a space of not to be able to grow into a good leader. You have to be somebody that doesn't just operate from a dictatorship level,
Gotcha.
and it's just like what I say goes and fuck growth. I think that takes a person of character because a lot of people just exploit that.
But let me ask you this then. So, and you say you think, and the consensus is most men aren't in that space as far as able to move into leadership
Well,
positions.
all right,
Is
so
that it? I'm asking
that was like a very like so understand like that wasn't a broad statement. He was speaking about marrying young and then going from not knowing into being a really good leader. And I think that takes a person of character. So I'm not saying I'm extrapolating that across all men of all ages. and all men don't have that characteristic. That's not what I'm saying. I'm speaking about that very nuanced layer of like
Man,
somebody that was young and actually grew, even though they had like a quote unquote position of power the entire time that they didn't have to grow into.
No, I get that. So, I mean, okay, maybe let me change my question a little bit. Um, when we was talking about, I'm speaking in general now, as far as
Okay.
most men not having the tools to be good leaders.
Okay.
Is that because of a lack of character from today's men, or is that a symptom of the environment that men are living in?
I think it's both. I think it's both. I mean, because the toughest thing is not having a visualization of what you're attempting to do. So you're freestyling it.
Okay.
So that's the toughest part right there. And then the character part comes in because in order to be an effective leader, you have to care about the people you're leading. So there is a portion of character that comes into that. You know what I mean? You're not going to do a great job leading a team of people if you don't really care about people in general. You know what I mean? You're going to do a shit job. And that's
Just
where you
gonna
get
move
that
off ego.
dictatorship. That's where all of that
Right.
comes from. If you don't care about people or the people that you're leading, then you're going to just be talking and talking to motherfuckers instead of trying to talk with people.
Right.
So
Talking,
it is
talking
both.
at people.
Yeah, talking at people and not talking with people. Because the thing is that, like we all understand, effective leadership comes with delegation. It comes with respect for the positives and the things that someone else is good at. So, in order to be an effective leader, you have to have that character, whether it be older or younger. Like, you know what I mean? So, when I was younger, I guess I was growing into. I didn't necessarily see. I mean, just a young man. You know what I mean? I was younger, and I appreciate, like I said this before, I appreciate my wife. You know what I mean, allowing me the time to learn it. You know what I mean? Because it's like I said, if you don't have any a visualization of it, then you're literally freestyling, and this is the hardest thing to freestyle because there's so many variables. But yeah, it's definitely character, and society is making it much harder. The whole bag thing. You know what I mean? Just because you get into a bag don't mean you should lead. Just because you know the job better than everybody else don't mean you should be the manager. You should just be paid good for doing your fucking job. You shouldn't be managing people.
That's also
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that
very
are the best at their job that are the
good.
worst managers.
Yeah.
Golly, that's one of them. I destroyed the entire manosphere with a point. Type statement. Just because you made a lot of money, you should be paid well for your job. Doesn't make you a leader.
Yeah.
So in general, I'm not dodging your question because in general, I kind of disagree with what Rail said. So I don't want to make it just like a complete echo chamber. Moving the conversation a little forward, not really, but kind of forward. I was sitting and it brought me to this conversation brought me to this thought, right? Where I've been looking and something that's interesting to me that I see a lot of guys complaining about. But it's kind of like this weird little paradox where guys now will complain about independent women, right? But knowingly be dating a woman that's making a lot of money in her career and is already established. As if you didn't know that like she was her own autonomous self. And to me, like it's a weird little thing where you hear guys complain about something that you've seen already from afar, as though like this, like you couldn't like see this already. I don't know what y'all think.
I mean, a lot of times you could complain about it, but I mean, if that's a lot of times those are the most eligible bachelorettes out there, the women that are actually out there making their money. So it makes sense that that's who guys are gonna date. Like you could complain about it, but like at the end of the day, when you choosing, you like, nah, I ain't gonna go with her. I'm picking, even though I got these
Right, but
complaints.
but you knew her resume beforehand. Then.
Yeah, I mean,
And to me, like,
Niggas be doing simple math. That's what it is.
well,
Niggas are
not
doing simple math. This
Yeah.
plus this equals this. But it ain't as simple as that. That just sounds good.
yes,
It just sounds good. You want a career woman that's making 70 and you know what I mean? She got her own. That sounds good, but it's gonna come with the level of independence and balls. Hopefully not the boss chick mentality. Because there's a mentality. You can be a adult woman You know what I mean? Taking care of your responsibilities, and if you know what I mean, if you're doing well in your career, you're just doing. But then if you go into this, I'm an independent woman, boss chick mindset, then now this is to the detriment.
Give me
That's to the
balls.
detriment.
I
But
heard that
I don't know. But yeah, no. So the idea of like, yeah, I want a woman that got herself together, and da 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 da. Da, you know what I mean? It does sound good with simple math. That's just logical thinking. You're just thinking logically. Okay, she got this, and then I got this, and then some niggas just be looking to get saved. Let's be quite honest. Some niggas be wanting to be saved.
Oh no, for sure. But I mean, if you are a guy that's like you looking for a savior, like, hey, you're not in a
funny as
leadership
hell.
position.
Well,
One,
you better
I mean,
just shut up.
um,
You out here look. You better just shut up, bro. Like you finna fuck it up. You better just shut up.
You see the amount of songs. It's funny. I was listening to because I actually like what's my girl name? She can sing her ass off.
Ari Lennox.
No. She be on the
Jasmine.
Jasmine Sullivan.
Yeah.
And I've been
You said
listening. You know how many
thick ass
songs?
Oh my bad.
And this goes with the not moving in shit that I always preach. You know how many songs there are with a nigga got then pack your bags, get your shit. You know how many songs there are out there of a nigga having to pack his shit up?
Well, if he act right, he won't have to pack it up.
Yeah, but see,
Big
my
fact.
thing is, if he had his own shit, he wouldn't be packing up either.
But if you had
You
your
could-
own shit and you
You
weren't
still
acting
have to
right, she
pack
would
your
still
shit.
be with you.
No, but at the
You
same
still
time,
gotta pack your shit. You still gotta pack your shit.
Oh, you talking about from her shit?
Yeah.
No, but see, the thing is, she's gonna be less likely to tell you to pack your shit when she knows you could just go home. See, the thing is, a lot of times they want to affect you in the hardest way, which is get your shit. You don't know where you're going. This is I'm giving you the goddamn. You know what I mean? This is the worst thing
It be
that we
but you-
can do.
It be that nigga that got his whole life in a box.
Yeah, exactly. The nigga that's picking up laundry detergent and the goddamn turkey wings when he leave out.
His whole life is in a box. He get kicked out. He done for.
Yeah, exactly. Those the niggas that be having to get the fuck
Okay.
out all the time.
Oh, you talking about? That's the nuance.
Yeah, them niggas be having to get the fuck out all the time. So that's why you don't even, you know what I mean?
But yeah, just bringing it back around, and I feel like we're gonna segue pretty soon. But like I said, I did think that that's an interesting observation. This isn't necessarily going to just the guy that's I don't know what you say, pack your bags, take your turkey wings.
Oh, that man
But-
can't afford
Take
turkey,
the
wing.
Right. But no,
Just calling them that.
but my thing is that like some things is they dead.
It just reminded me of that video. Y'all saw that video of that girl. She was like, "You want some sausages?" She would say, "I'm gonna cook some sausages." Bro, it was hot. He said, "Those are no damn sausages. It's a fucking hot dog."
She tried to salt the hot dog.
But I want to bring it back real quick.
Okay.
Like that EBT thinking she fancy.
Talking about sausages. Bro was hype about them sausages.
So I want to reel it back to the idea of like men complaining about the independent woman, right? Because many men say, "I don't want a woman that's a leash. I want a woman that got her own." So it's like when you have a woman that has her own, then you're still complaining because we might not have time for you, or we
Or
might
she
not
just
be
not
as
dependent on you.
yeah, or we might not be as attentive as you want us to be. It's like one of those things where I feel like a lot of times men expect women to be superwoman and literally do everything at all times. It's like that's not possible. Just like, you know, how men have their days where they're like, "Oh, I forgot to do X, Y, and Z." As a woman who has her own, that's providing for herself, she's going to forget the same thing when it comes to you. So I feel like men tend to kind of like villainize women for that have their own stuff. It's like, "Oh, she's too independent. She don't need me for nothing." And it's like, well, financially, no, she doesn't. And at this point, it's really like her needing you around, it's her wanting you around.
I think that just goes to what I said. Niggas gotta adjust their leadership styles.
I also say this. I don't think dudes start vilifying those independent women until it's an independent woman that you want and she not acting the way you want her to act. But I think before, you know, when you just like everybody like to date Beyonce. But when you actually start dating Beyonce and she then it's like, oh, it's this whole list. And then you start complaining about, oh, it's the independent. But before, I think it's the guys that are trying to get those independent women to fit into
Like a bubble that obviously it don't
that
make
she
sense for them
don't
to
shit that
fit
she
into.
don't fit in. I think that's where you go wrong because, I mean, of course, like he
Trying to
said,
get
the
that
simple
independent
math,
woman to
it
be-
sound good.
Yeah, it sounds
It
good.
sound good, but you gotta really be confident secure. You have to then work everything out with yourself to date that woman, because there's gonna be that time where you may want to link up and she can't, or you may want to do this and she want to go do something else. So you definitely gotta be like secure with yourself before you go and try to date a woman like that, or you'll end up, on the internet. I don't like these independent women, and she'll need it. You'll end up in that manosphere. If you try to you try to go out your lane and date a woman that you ain't ready to date. I think that's a big part of it. People, sometimes you should just chill. You should wait before you holler at that girl. Get your stuff together, then holler at her and step right, and then it'll probably go the way you can have your way with it. But if you out here not where you want to be, and you with a woman that's where she want to be, it's obviously gonna be, there's gonna be some kind of disconnect there.
Johnny. So I guess it's two sides to a coin. That's what they say, right?
Here we go.
Hold on, I want to answer that though, but
Oh, you want to answer?
I definitely
Oh,
want to
my
answer
bad.
that.
Let me let Real get him.
No, I definitely want to answer that, and I'm gonna go back to it sounds good.
Hell yeah.
The thing is that okay? First off, my preference, right? So I think this is my thing. I think that every man, as a man, you should strive to be able to take care of all of the financial burden of the family yourself. When I say strive, that doesn't mean that you ever get to that, but that should be your goal. See, the goal that you're seeking as a man. In my opinion, see, and this the thing is that like it's called living below means is one of the main portions of this, but it depends on what you value. See, me, I'm the type person. I don't want my wife's complete value to be outside of the house. No, I don't want that. That's not my preference.
What do you
If
mean
you
by
just
that?
want to do simple math and just 70 plus 70 equals 140, yeah, that makes sense. But at the same time, for both of us to have the same let's say for both of us, nobody, if we're both doing that same thing, then nobody's actually paying enough attention to the house itself. If I'm giving all of my time to the job, you're giving all of your time to the job, then there's not enough time paid attention to the house. So my preference specifically would be that I find myself in a certain financial situation to where if my wife should choose to work, she doesn't work full time. You know what I mean? She's not spending the hours of why the kids. So we got to get the child's being raised by
What if
everybody else other than the house, than the family that's actually supposed. You know what I mean? It's just that's my preference. I'm not saying that will work for everybody. My preference would be that I don't want no, because the simple math, of course, you can get to 140 with 70 plus 70, but I don't need 140 if my overhead is not so high.
I got a question. This is
Go ahead.
random. I just thought about. What if she wants to work that?
Yeah, and I mean, and that's one of those things where it's a conversation. So, is it that you want to? Is this what you want to do for the rest of your life? Because we may not be may not be trying to have no long term relationship. Because I understand that where you want to go and where I want to go are completely separate ways.
Gotcha. I think that's spoken from the lens of someone that advocates for traditionalism, and I think that's fair inside that lens. I would also say that there is a couple spaces to kind of like consider as well when you're looking at that. And again, I'm more so an advocate of modern relationships, modern times, and I would say that in general. So I'll take one point that you make, in which like, so your kid is being raised by the world, or however you may say it.
Yeah.
I think that there's also the space where, if you have the financial capability, you can actually put your kid inside, whether that's early child care programs or different programs in which you have a licensed professional that's able to teach and place your kid inside a further space than which you or your partner might be able to, because that's what
Understood.
they went to school with and have been specialized in. And I think that that's also another thing to think about, where
Understood.
the options that come with the traditional scenario, as well as the options that come with being modern.
And this is my little, and it's not even pushback because it's not. That's why I said my preference. So if that person's preference would be that, then I would ask them, okay, so do you not think that whether you can pay for this specialized whatever person, do you not think that the actual emotional connection and the actual insight that you as a parent, that relationship that you build with your child is better? Do you think that it's better? That, to me, I value that more. So if I would want my wife, I would
Then
want
you
a
got to
wife
work from
that,
home as a
hold on,
male as well.
hold on, but I would, my bad, but I didn't catch what you said. But I would want my wife to value that more than her relationship with her children, and like, because I think I care more about that kind of stuff, like to actually build that bond and like, you know what I mean, have that trust factor, the way you know your child gonna come to you and talk to you about everything. If you know a lot, if you notice a lot of people that pay for that, a lot, you can pay for a whole bunch of shit for your children to be doing, but if you what that does is, the only thing that does is provide more distance, more
I can't say
disconnect
that
between.
you have to show me the examples that
Well,
I
only people I
personally don't
know
know the
is
one.
like famous people, and you will hear them talk about like, or maybe movies too. You see that like,
But
yeah, they're
I think
paying
that
for them to
it's a
go off
lot
to
of.
these schools and go off and do all
But
of this
that's
shit,
not
but
what
they
I'm
don't
talking
have a
about.
connection with the parents themselves.
Right. But so you're talking about like sending kids to boarding school and different things like that. I'm not saying that at all. And I think that there's within whether we can just go in our friend group. And again, like the truth is that this is a middle class black podcast. And the more we kind of like sit and sift through some of our friends, these are friends that have this. And I also know friends that um, provide in the traditional sense, and they also still pay for extra care for like the younger ones, in which they sending them to an actual specialized whatever. This
Yeah.
is, and again, like it sounded like what you were speaking about was again maybe boarding school or something like that, where you're sending them away. But in general, that distance, I can't say that I personally have seen that with some of the different examples that I've seen around me. But I would also say that there's also many versions of this. Where I was sitting and having a conversation this weekend where there's two-parent working household with a young kid under a year, 2 years, and the mom still stays at home. She just works from home, and the kid's still there with them
Yeah,
as
that's
well.
some
And
new
she
shit.
she
That work
works.
from home shit. That's some goddamn 2020 shit. That damn this 20. That just real. That's
Well,
fairly new
but I mean, I can only talk. But I'm talking
from a
about just
current time. I
a
get it.
current time and a current situation that I just we're just having a conversation about, in which like that would be another example of
I
it.
would think that would be
But
even harder. Working from home and taking care of the kid from home
um,
in the house. That's a lot.
I think that I'm sure that that's a lot.
That is a lot.
But just giving an example of how like some of these different things can work itself out. But I also wouldn't say that I'm on the side where if a woman, well, and again, this is where like our splits are always going to be at. Because you're traditional, so you want your woman to adhere to traditional
No, and I'm kind of.
characteristics in general.
Go ahead.
But because like you're saying that you want her to value her place in the home over career in general.
The
Like
family
that,
over the over.
right. And
Yeah,
like that's a fairly traditional
yeah, for
perspective in
sure.
general. And I think that in general, it's fair if a woman has same like has career aspirational drives as well, and as long as within the family it's worked out to where both people can kind of get whatever they want to do career wise, and everything in the household is also taken care of. However that looks, to me, I don't think that there's an issue. And I also, again, I think it's fair. The 70-70 equals 140. And like, but if I keep my overhead low, 70 might be enough to make sure that everything gets done and whatever. And that's where the difference in the lifestyles come in. Where if that woman in a traditional sense, her want, care, and happiness lives in the household, then that's perfect.
Right, right.
Right. Where if the other person got a college degree, got a master's, and like she's driven. This is like, and some of that 70 is going to the caveats in which allows her personal happiness and y'all family the ability to provide and also cater to the kid both educationally and or like y'all both being able to like have the like however you work out the home situation. I think that that's fair as well.
And this is my last statement, and I'll let it go.
Yeah, I'll
This is
let
my
you.
last statement. I think that whereas when we start, and this is the thing, so like the way that I kind of got away from that whole Superman idea for women is that so it's like, okay, so I know that I want a woman that will to make sure I want a woman that to make sure that the house is straight. I like a cooked meal. I like a home cooked meal, regular. You know what I mean, on a regular day. So if I'm sitting here, so is my expectation that and that's the thing. Like I know what my expectations are. So if my expectation is to have a clean house and I'm not like when I'm not 50% of cleaning and I'm not 50% of cooking and I'm not, so then at that point it made me realize, okay, well, I can't expect for her to give the man 40 hours and then come in here and cook and then clean. You know what I mean? So
Oh no,
the
I agree. And
expectation becomes too much. So that's where I was like,
and-
okay, well, I won't, and that's how I kind of got more leaning towards the traditional because I know I have specific expectations and I have expectations of myself, and I would like for
right,
the
and
women to have expectations of
those
myself as well. But
are traditional expectations.
right. So
So
that's what I'm saying. I
get
lean more to the traditional. So that's why I was like, okay, I'm not asking a woman to do like what my mom was trying to do. I seen my mom doing the 40 plus hours and 3 kids, and you know what I mean, not checking homework. I want you to be checking home. I want that to be your intention, checking homework and all of that. All of the things that create that. You know what I mean? Create that can push that child in the best way that I could see. You know what I mean? Is to have someone whose main focus that's in the house. Someone's main focus is the children, and that's kind of how I got down to it. Was like I'm not trying to make a woman do or trying to act so much from
right.
somebody. It's like no, I'm a, you know what I mean. And so don't worry about that part. I'd rather you worry about this part. It was almost like either I'm going to put this over this, or how am I going to figure out what makes sense for me.
Gotcha. And I think that so what you said makes like I agree with it completely. The idea of the superwoman woman, where yes, I think if that's what you're looking for, then that doesn't make sense because then that wouldn't be a modern relationship. You'd be looking for, and this is where I also think that a lot of guys get it fucked up, and this is why we're like you trying to date a woman that you know is a career woman and is successful, and then you're trying to also make her do all of these things in the household, and you're trying to make her be superwoman.
Right.
I also don't agree with that.
Like you met Shorty at the job, and she
Yes.
was doing better than you at the job when you
Right.
met her, and now you want her to quit the job. And
Yeah,
like,
nah.
come on, let's
Yes,
be for real.
and I think that this is also a space where time is evolving, and our roles as a guy, as a male, changes as well. Where I also say that I'm in a generation of extremely active fathers, and the homework, like taking kids, whatever, being involved inside the extracurricular shit is no longer just as we spoke about this earlier. Growing up, we seen that as like it was like the band mom shit or the teen mom and different things like that. But you see a lot more guys are starting to take leadership roles in that as well, and have the wants to take leadership roles in that. Even where like I said, I'm inside the basketball sphere heavy. Like they made it like just a team parent thing, because in general, like there's more activity across the board with everybody. Just given how like time
So
has
ask
morphed
this question
itself.
real quick. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
That's a great thing. So, but then something I thought about too is how many of, and I'm not saying that, I'm not making a statement at all. This is purely a question. How many of those guys that are actually doing all of these things are in house with the kids?
Well,
That is an observation, because the thing is, a lot of the guys that I know that's doing like I see
I know
that's
you
doing
were.
like very good, like being in that doing all of these things is because the children don't. I'm not saying it's because of this, but I noticed that the children generally do not live with them full time as well. So it's not never, but it's majority of the times it's not like an in-house family dynamic where the men are also doing those things. Most times it's like the guy, they don't live with their kids. So
yeah,
like that's
I
a
guess for
portion of
me,
that.
my personal anecdotal evidence I disagree. So like if I just look at the majority of parents that I know within like the basketball teams that I know, it's actually like it's kind of surprising, but there's a lot of 2-parent households where truthfully dropping kids off, or like even over the break we had like my son, his team had like 12. Like they had practice at like 10 and 12, his middle school team or whatnot. And different days, I've seen different parents pick up different kids, just depending on the situation. But all
Gotcha.
all working parents. He goes to school inside like pretty much it's like the middle school blacks, the university or whatever. And that's definitely something that I paid attention to, picked up, and noticed.
I think
Yes.
Taj has a question.
Oh no, I was just gonna make a statement. I've seen it to where my oldest brother and sister-in-law, they both are career driven. Like they both have their own businesses. And so I've seen it to where with them, they both share that household responsibility. So my brother will literally come from being out because he has his own tow truck company. He'll literally come out from being out all day and he'll still cook dinner for the kids or pick up dinner for the kids. He'll still make sure he get them ready for bed, or he'll wake up in the morning before he leaves out and cooks them breakfast, and then like she'll take them. So like it's ways in which
dope.
it can work, even though they're two completely like different career driven people. You can still make it work in your household.
And you said they both own their own business, so they don't go in and do 40.
No, my sister-in-law has a dump truck company, and then my brother has a tow truck company.
Okay.
So they literally work for themselves.
But,
Yeah,
but
I mean, but that
and a lot
helps
of
too
it
a
just
little
comes
bit, though.
down to like rethinking what like the family structure looks
Should
like,
look like,
and
yeah.
everybody's responsibility.
well, yeah, but I also think it's outside of like I think we can get too caught up in traditional, modern. I think everybody just has to figure out what
Works
works
for
for
them.
you and the person that you're in a relationship and your family. If
Facts.
your woman wants to work 40 hours a week, then that means, hey, I might have to check homework. I might have to do. If she doesn't, then that means she's probably gonna be checking. I'm probably gonna be putting more time in. But just like how all people are unique, all relationships are unique. Because you're taking two unique people and putting them in relationships, and no relationship is ever gonna mirror what anybody else does over there.
I'm in
So
full agreement with
you
that.
can't
No, for sure.
necessarily, the comparative, Olympics always is going to do disservice to
Oh no, for sure.
to all relationships and even what you're trying to do. Because
And I think that only space that it comes into like a combative spot would be where either one of them doesn't match up, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like if you are a modern guy, you want a woman to adhere to some traditional shit, or if you're a traditional guy, you want a woman to adhere to some
then you could
traditional shit, and she's a modern woman.
you
I
could
think
find
that
a modern traditionalist woman that kind
I
of
kn-
agrees
no, but
with.
see, you didn't disagree. Like that's what you should do. That's what I'm saying. Like the only space that it butts heads is when, and I think it is a good identifier to understand exactly what, and that's why like me,
And
like
that's the
I
thing,
didn't really
yeah.
disagree with anything Rail said. I said I get that from a traditional space,
Right.
and then I can give an example of like
Yeah,
where
yeah,
it's modern because of depending on what you want,
That's
decides the
the thing.
partner that
You
you
gotta,
really need.
you and your partner
Exactly.
gotta,
And I
you
think
and your
also
partner gotta
too,
make that work.
people have to stop looking at social media to tell them how their relationship should go or
Facts.
what their relationship looks like. Honestly, sit down with yourself and figure out exactly what it is that you want, and not what looks good for Instagram or Facebook or whatever
No,
social
that's
media
facts.
platform you're
That
using,
is
but literally
facts.
sit down and figure out what's going to work for you. You and your partner talk, and y'all get on the same page. So stop comparing to social
Not
media.
really.
And this my last statement on it too. The fire and that I agree with that 100%. One thing I'll say as well to piggyback on that as well is that we also have to stop having these quote unquote correct answers for everything. So like a marriage is supposed to be this, or
And that's
a
the-
boyfriend's supposed to do this.
And that's
These
it.
these things where you got these preconceived notions like that I'm supposed to match up to some other shit that I don't know I'm supposed to be matching up to,
Yeah.
or I don't care to match up to it. So like the whole thing is like having these, and I think that's one of those main ones too. That's like murdering shit because we have these. It's supposed to be like there's rule books and shit where these things actually are
Yeah.
set out to be this specific.
And I think
way.
that's to go with what you're saying. That's the evolution of the conversation for sure. Is understanding exactly that figure out what you actually want and find out what fits those characteristics.
Hey,
Johnny.
speaking of evolution of conversation, I think this one is fully evolved.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
think
we in
that's
a
a
Charizard
great.
right
I think
now.
that's a great spot to leave it at. Yeah, I think that was a definitely a good conversation. We touched on
Yeah.
a few things. This is episode 1, season 2. This was the To Be Fair show. I am your host Johnny P,
Old head real.
It's Q.
and I'll say like, comment, subscribe below. Follow us on Instagram at the To Be Fair show. Follow us on Facebook at The To Be Fair Show and YouTube at The To Be Fair Show.
So Johnny, did you get that OnlyFans link ready or what?
But I'm still waiting for the registration. I'm waiting on my approval. So the OnlyFans link gonna be dropping next week too. So again, this is To Be Fair. We out.
We out.